Wow, this is pretty interesting. I've just started taking apart the other speaker, and first of all, the tweeter, I think it's the same tweeter, but it's just kind of textured, whereas the other one isn't. So, and it also, this was rotated about 45 degrees. So yeah, I don't know whether they were the original tweeters, but interestingly, inside, there's the original crossover down there, and someone's put this thing in. Yeah, a little three-way crossover. So I'm not surprised they measure differently, because one's got a completely different crossover and the other one's junked down there. How weird. So anyway, we're going to rebuild this. I'm assuming everything is okay in there. I mean, they've still left the components connected, but obviously not to the drivers. So what a mess. Wow. So I'm not surprised these have been sounding different to you, Tony. They certainly measured different, as we saw. So yeah. Okay, so just quickly testing the old capacitors out of the other speaker, and this is the one where someone's bodged in this little generic three-way crossover, which is never going to work because the crossover network has to be designed in accordance with the speakers you're using. You can't just slap something like that in. Right, so this should be a 10, and we get 17.5, so yeah, that's way out, 70% out. I've checked the inductors on that and they are all absolutely fine. Right, let's check this here. So this should be, these are actually 5s, not 7.5, so these are dated 1971, so whether a 7.5 was actually available. 5.3 that's measuring at, and then we got one more here. Sorry, I'm doing this hands free, but just trying to get a bit done today. Okay, and this one is, again, should be 5.5. So yeah, that mid cap was way off. So yeah, maybe that was the reason they jammed that thing in there, but yeah, not good. The inductors are fine, so we can rebuild this board as it was meant to be and get it all back together. Quickly, while these are out as well, I've measured the DC resistance on both woofers, and they're both 7.5 ohms, which is great. The tweeters, the one on the right is 6.9, one on the left is 8.2. And then the mids, we have one on the right is 7.5, one on the left is 8.1, so pretty close enough. So I just thought I'd pull the lid off this little crossover that have been put in. It's just first order slopes on everything. So we've got an inductor here for the woofer. I don't know its value, I'm not going to bother measuring it. A capacitor and an inductor for the mid-range, and then just a capacitor for the tweeter. So first order slopes on all of these. Not going to match our drivers at all. Interestingly, they're all air core inductors, although the orientation's poor. But yeah, thought it might be interesting to have a look at that. Right, so the crossovers are done. Might not look like the most tidiest thing in the world, but they are all complete, point to point, soldered, and yeah, new wiring. The components are much smaller than the original. I mean, that's our 10, and our 10 is under there. That's our 5 or 4.7, and you see the size difference. I've used a poly cap on the tweeter circuit because it's actually a really good tweeter, but I've introduced a resistor beforehand because of the ESR value. That tweeter would just play too loud. Retained obviously the inductors, they are really good. new binding posts, which will take banana plugs or cable. So yeah, really good. Like I say, they might not look particularly tidy, but when you're limited to how you can put things into this and what you've already got in place, and sort of extending wiring and using them from these inductors, then that's kind of what you end up with. But it's good. Quite pleased with those. Really good resistor as well. So yeah, we should be sounding good. So it's time to put these back together. Just while I'm at it, when I originally did this, I got I did mention it in the other video on the comments, I got the inductor values the wrong way round. On the mid circuit we come into a 10 microfarad cap and then through to our 0.32 millihenry, and then to the mid range. Our 1.45 millihenry inductor is actually the shunt inductor for this capacitor here to make a second order. So yeah, just to correct that, but I'm going to obviously CAD this up properly like I do with the others and include it when these go back. Okay, so before we start reassembling these, you'll see that I've sprayed the front baffle black. It was black anyway, just to wake it up a bit, and because it was looking quite faded. And yeah, now that's all looking good and nicely back together. And then on the back as well, as you can see, I've gone over that with some brown. It was brown before, just to freshen that all up as well. And then finally, when I'm finished, I'll give these a good coat of teak oil as well, and we should be looking nice and fresh again. Right, so the original holes are there, so we can use those. That's good. Beautiful. Right, so washers on there. There's already a foam gasket on this, so it's pretty airtight when it's screwed in. Let's find the nuts. Yeah, I've become quite fond of these speakers. I'm just kind of quite a fan of these big baffled speakers. I mean, there's a whole host of reasons why you wouldn't have a baffle this big, but you know, they're imposing, they're bits of furniture, and they are, I like them. Alright, so that's our crossover back in. Right, so next thing really is to get some of the foam in. So our cable for our mid, our woofer, and our tweeter. Right, so each one of these had 4 pieces of foam in, which is kind of top, bottom, left and right. So let's try and get these in there. Let's take this out again. tweeter. You up there. Range. Right, so kind of like that. That's a lot of foam. Okay. I think we do our little drivers first, and then we can tuck the wiring back in. Right, let's get the mid screwed back in. What I'll do is get rid of some of this foam that's hanging out the side. Just to neaten them up a bit. Better. All right, tweeter. Right, back in the hole where it should be. Cables tucked back in. All right. Okay, good. Good. Right, time for the massive woofer. Bullseye. Right. Lovely. There we go. Let's get this bolted back in. Time for a test up after that, I think. I'm missing one from there. Okay, back together. Oh, right, so I've just, as you've seen, finished putting these back together. Crossovers all rebuilt, drivers repaired and all put back together. I've just packed up the measurement space. Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised how similar these now are. Got the tweeter back in the right way round in this one. We repaired the mid-range and the cone on the woofer, and yeah, they're a lot cleaner than they were spectral decay wise, and the measurement between the two, comparing them, very, very similar. I wasn't expecting these to be great because of their age and because of just the driver layout. I've only done on-axis measurements. I've found at 1 metre, if I go off-axis, because of the way these are all laid out, it quickly develops holes and things like that, because I'm measuring at the standard 1 metre. If I go far field, so 2 metres, that doesn't really have much of an effect. So yeah, these are designed for a bigger room, listening further away, and all is good. So I'm pleasantly surprised. So I think sound wise we are sorted now. They're where they should be, as good as they ever were. I would hope possibly a bit better now because we've introduced a poly cap on our tweeter, because this is a nice silk dome tweeter. And I've listened to some music through these now, not just done the measurements, and yeah, they're pretty good. The bass is fantastic, really, really good. Mid-range is nice, and this tweeter has a good amount of sparkle now, so they're certainly a speaker suited to your double bass, big bass drums, that sort of thing. Yeah, they don't image very well because of the size of this baffle. They will beam a bit, but that's not really what they're about. So yeah. Right, so next thing to do, which will be in the next video, is to clean these cabinets. I will probably go over them with some wire wool and then re-oil them. And then these are done, and we still have the grills to do. I need to talk to Tony because the cloth that they're covered in at the moment, I cannot find anything similar anywhere. So it might be the case that we just have to recloth them in black, but we can't really keep what's there. It's torn to shreds and it's really rotten. It's just so it'll just pull apart and break. So I will continue the hunt, but I am struggling. And then we'll conclude it all in a part 3. But otherwise, yeah, we're about there. Okay, thanks for watching.